Hey everybody, welcome to Comedy on Vinyl. This episode we got to, that is to say, me and Alex Salem, who is an awesome friend of mine and very funny man. We got to sit down with Paul Zaloom, who played Beakman on Beakman's World and is a political satirist and a puppeteer. He's just hilarious, and he wanted to talk about Paul Buckley, really, and he wanted to talk about Lord Buckley. It was just one of the best times I've ever had doing anything. It was just a lot of fun listening to a guy who Alex and I both admire talk about, a comedian, or that is to say a performance artist who neither of us were insanely familiar with. So it was a lot of fun. This episode, we've got a series of clips from one track. It wouldn't really help you at all to do multiple clips from multiple tracks because they're very long in general. It's basically a guy... Lord Buckley is very hard to condense into a sentence, but he did a lot of hipster speak from the 50s and 60s. That is to say, in the 50s and 60s, the hipster speak goes back to jazz speak in the 20s and 30s, and it's really great stuff. So I've got those clips throughout, and at the end I'm going to throw in a little clip of him doing the hipster version of the funeral oration from Julius Caesar. It's really just some amazing stuff. So, make sure you also check out Paul Zaloom's got a show coming up in Los Angeles here in February. I'll put more links up to it on the website. And Alex has an awesome sketch comedy show on YouTube called Viewers Like You TV. Go to youtube.com/viewerslikeyoutv. All one word, obviously. I hate when people say that stuff. Obviously, it's all one word. Spaces don't work. Anyway, enjoy that. Check out Paul Zaloom's stuff and enjoy this episode. All right, everybody. Welcome to Comedy on Vinyl. This week, we have an amazing special guest, Paul Zaloom.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for doing this.
It's my pleasure.
I'm very excited. Paul Zaloom, in case you people don't know out there, was, at least in my childhood, Beakman, and then obviously a political satirist, puppeteer. You do a lot of things, so it's impossible to list them all, so I know what that's like. And also guesting with me is Alex Salem.
Hello.
For the first time.
Loving it.
Now you're committed, you have to come on to another episode.
I'm down. I'm down.
So you want to talk about Lord Buckley.
Yeah.
In general. I picked this album, which is the Bad Rapping of Marquis to Sade, because it's the only one I could find. But are there any special tracks on here that are favorites of yours? Or
my favorite is H-Bomb.
Yeah.
Because it's in two parts, and the first part is about his theory about God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really funny, and it's very sort of not profane, but I guess some people would find it sacrilegious. But it's actually very beautiful. It's sort of this secular humanist ideal that he expresses in such a great way. I mean, Buckley was a white guy who combined black street language and phony baloney English hooty tooty bullshit.
Yeah.
And combine those two things, and plus this huge gamut of voices and sound effects that he was capable of making.
Yeah.
And he reinterpreted various myths and stories, like Jesus of Nazareth is called the Naz, and he does Scrooge, and he had a thing about Gandhi called the Hip Gon, or maybe it was called the Spinning Wheel. I don't remember what it's called, but he's known for those, and Mark Antony's funeral oration from the Julius Caesar.
Julius Caesar coming to the stage.
Yeah, he had a heart attack, old Julius Caesar. And Buckley, he was a guy who did work he did like dance marathons in the 30s, and they would have 8-hour shifts, and they would just do patter, because the dance marathons would go on for days and days, and people would just dance for days and days, and they needed an MC, and so he got to do enough patter and he had enough time on the deck that he had a great deal of facility in front of a live audience.
Yeah.
When you say patter, you mean like what do you mean? What do you mean exactly?
He had to talk while the dancing was going on and make it interesting enough and dynamic enough that people would stick around to watch the marathon dancing. These were things where you would get a prize of $1,000 or something if you were the last couple standing, and they would dance for days, and they would fall asleep, and the guy would hold the girl up, and all of this. I mean, they were like torture. And Buckley was an MC and would go on for hours.
Yeah.
And just
I don't know what about, but just
Yeah, that's what I would.
Just
wonder.
getting into it, just being able to go for that long and keep coming up with material.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane to me. Was he doing anything funny? Do we know? I mean,
Yeah, it's not really. There's no tapes or
Yeah.
anything of that stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing that's amazing about Buckley for me as a performer and as a puppeteer
yeah,
is that he's really good with voices
Yeah.
and dynamics of voices. If you listen to H-Bomb, at the end there's this part of the scene where Krusky, I think he's called in the routine, who was Khrushchev.
Yeah.
And then Molly comes in, and that's Molotov, the guy who the Molotov cocktail was named after. And the voices where, oh, son, is something wrong? What is it? What? To go back and forth
Just
between...
pop in and pop out.
Yeah. And it was an inspiration to me in my work where I wanted to make puppet shows. So I have a visual component, but sort of take that idea from Buckley of being able to turn on a dime with the
Right.
voices and doing sound effects. But just to get back to... Buckley is like, for me, is like listening to a great musician. Like a virtuoso musician, or seeing a virtuosic painting. Where the guy, everything he does is perfect.
Yeah.
There's a certain perfection to it. He was such a master of being in front of an audience, and he swung so deep, and he manipulated the tempo and the timing of everything just beautifully.
yeah. It's jazz. It's very jazz. I mean, obviously not just the lingo, but
Yeah.
it sounds a lot like jazz.
And he played jazz venues. The Hungry Eye, and I think the Vanguard in New York, and he hung out with jazz musicians.
Yeah, I was reading that. I guess that makes perfect sense. Given, I mean, and he was raised in Chicago, right? So, or is that? I thought I read that. I could be wrong.
I think he was raised in California.
Oh, really? Okay.
In Redland or some crazy place.
Okay.
But he spent a lot of time in Chicago. He spent a lot of time in L.A. and he spent time in New York.
Yeah.
And then other places, Vegas, and
I'm assuming then he picked up the speech patterns from all the jazz places he hung out at. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just so. There's one thing I was thinking about listening to it. To a modern audience, 'cause I always put clips in these. I know to a modern audience they might listen to it, and initially you say it's a white guy. They hear him doing a voice that's a quote-unquote black voice. People are going to get offended if they don't understand that it's nothing to do with, it's not political. It's not making fun of a voice,
Yeah, it sounds like just a natural, like his natural manifestation of expressing those things.
Right.
yeah. Well, Buckley, in some routine, which I don't remember which one it is, he talks about black people and his love of black people and the contribution that black people have made to American culture. He recognized that. The thing is, in the early 60s, there were rumblings from certain quarters about what he was doing was racist.
Yeah.
And, he died before anything really happened with that. But there was some, like one of the routines he did was he would do Amos and Andy. And he did that on early television, like 1947 on TV.
Okay.
And, Amos and Andy, they were, I think in the earlier versions, they were played by guys in blackface.
Right, yeah.
So, and that's all like racist and crazy. And,
Sure.
But the context that he was doing that in was really different than today.
Yeah.
And I think in a way it was really a tribute, but,
It's. I guess it would be hard to make that argument.
I think. Yeah,
I don't have a problem with it.
I don't either. It feels like a tribute. I think what you're saying, Jason, is it would be, how on earth would you try to pull that off today?
Right. I guess that would be an issue, but that's kind of what the purpose of satire, I suppose, is to get people's ire up and make them listen. Even though it seems like he was just in general having fun.
It does feel that way. He's achieving the effect of satire.
If I listen to something like H-Bomb, though, it's like it's so genuine that it's almost it's obviously satire, but it's soft satire in a way. It's so beautiful, and you don't hear that or see that often. I mean, is there something about it specifically that's inspired you? Not just this piece, but just what he does satirically too.
Well, in that piece, H-Bomb, he does say. And I'm going to paraphrase. I'm going to try to quote this right. It is the duty of the humor of any given nation in time of high crisis to attack the catastrophe that faces it in such a manner that it causes the people to laugh at it in such a way that they do not die before they get killed.
Yes.
And that to me is sort of the essence of what Buckley, what he does. And the whole notion of, getting people to laugh about what's going to kill them is really great. And that's been, I've quoted that often in interviews and stuff like that, because that's really what I've been interested in. That sentence, long and convoluted, has really been a huge inspiration for making work.
It gave me chills listening to it. I have never heard anybody condense something like that.
I like what you were saying about it as a mission statement, because you listen to the bad rapping of Marquis right before it, and there is a definite tone change. He definitely drops in for a lot more of H-Bomb, where he's just explaining it. Where I feel like he even sort of like steps down for a second and he's just talking to you and telling you his idea.
Yeah.
And you're very drawn in. You jive with it.
Is there anything out there because I couldn't find anything where we heard his natural speaking voice. And so I'm just curious how far off all that is from his natural speaking voice, because
I think you can if you look on YouTube, he was on the Groucho Marx TV show.
That's right. I didn't watch that.
And it reminds me a little bit of like Charles Ludlam being in that movie about New Orleans. It's like watching a gigantic figure doing some penny ante thing. And because Groucho, he was great. The Marx Brothers were great. Sure. But Buckley literally and figuratively towered over him. And he was a very tall man. He was like 6'8" or so. I don't know how tall he was. Really tall. Wow. And Groucho sort of plays the part on the show. This is your... What was the show called? You Bet Your Life. Yeah. And Groucho kind of plays the straight man, or sort of, the David Susskind role, or, Charlie Rose or something. And, makes jokes and shit.
Of course,
and Buckley does some of his routine on that thing. And, you see him, and he's so statuesque, and, he's really... he's very dignified, and he got the whole, he does the whole thing, lords and ladies of the royal court, and calling himself Lord Buckley, and, you would be Prince Jason or whatever, or, Duke of, everyone was a royal member of the royal family. And apparently that happened because he had gotten his hands on an elephant robe from a circus and, wrapped himself in it and said, lords and ladies. And it just all started there.
Holy shit.
It's just like a natural response to trying something out, and then it becomes an ongoing motif, or just a thing he returns to a lot.
Yeah.
So funny.
He was also famous for a couple of gags, one of which was he went to a show of Sinatra's with a bunch of his friends. And I think Sinatra was friends with him. Okay. And it was at the Waikiki Hotel or something. And Buckley and his friends all went to the show naked. And it really pissed off Sinatra, so that was the end of that. But there's another great story about him playing in a mob joint in Chicago. And there being a bunch of mob guys there with their girlfriends. And he asked them to bring up their fur coats, all the girlfriends, and he made a pile of them on the stage, and he took lighter fluid, and he doused them with lighter fluid, and he lit them, and he said, thank you very much, and he went out the back door and took a train to New York.
Fuck.
And the mob guys thought that it was so ballsy, they let him off the hook. They just thought it was, it was great.
You can't go... You have to go completely all the way with that.
Yeah, that's...
It's like Andy Kaufman.
Yeah, right.
That's
my first thought, I guess.
Yeah. And if you talk to a lot of comedians like Robin Williams, obviously, and I remember talking to Tom Smothers about Buckley. It's fun when you meet old comics or not necessarily old, but people who know him. He really is one of those guys who's a comedian's comedian.
Please, flipped and grooved by this very, very gracious group of lords and ladies here at the Marquis de Mupo's swinging Palace of Joy. Like I explained before, I'm a people worshiper. I think people should worship people. I really do. I went out looking for God the other day, and I couldn't pin him. So I figured if I couldn't find him, I'd look for his stash. His great lake of love that holds the whole world in gear. And when I finally found it, I had the great pleasure of finding that the people were the guardians of it. Dig that. So with my 2 times 2 is 4, I figured that people were guarding the stash of love known as God. Then when people swing in beauty, they become little gods and goddesses. And I know a couple of them myself personally, and I know you do too. I think people should worship people. I like to worship something I can see, something I can get my hands on, get my brains on. I don't know about that Jehovah cat. I can't reach him.
It's so weird because when I listen to it, it's just so weird because it first sort of strikes you as strictly performance art. So it's one of those things that seems to walk that line like Andy Kaufman did, just to bring up that parallel again. Is he a stand-up comic or
a monologist or performance artist? Like, I was wondering that earlier when we were talking about if he's hanging out at jazz clubs, he's getting on stage there in between musicians. Do you say comedian? Do you say artist?
Just say Lord Buckley?
Or do you just say, I think he was just
I don't know what he was billed as. Mm-hmm. It's a good question.
And I mean, I know. I guess it doesn't matter in the long run, but I'm always
curious
how they're
it's
pitched
curious.
at the time. You know, because you can be very surprised. Because I mean, initially when I took you to be a performer in a kids show, and then eventually you start to be more aware that holy shit, this guy does stuff that I would love to do.
The same thing.
Political satire and like puppetry. For fuck's sake, I would love to do puppetry. But what do you want to talk? I'd like to talk about some of the stuff that you've done outside of Beakman's world, because I think that's what people are more familiar with.
Well, I came up in the Bread and Puppet Theater, which is a anarchist puppet theater that started 50 years ago, like the Rolling Stones. Mm-hmm. It's our 50th anniversary this year. And it's kind of a neo-German expressionist aesthetic, mm-hmm. and very, very political, anarchist, Marxist. So anyway, I came up in that, and it's well known in the East Coast, actually internationally very well known as an avant-garde American theater company.
Okay.
And so I was in the Bread and Puppet Theater, and I still work up there in the summer times. We have this geezer week where all the geezers, the old farts who were around in the 70s and shit, get together and work on shows. But so I learned a couple things there, which was, puppetry, puppets. That mm-hmm. was really interesting to me because the possibilities are endless. Sure. You can do anything with puppets. And also the whole idea of making a living from touring, which is what Bread and Puppet does. They don't apply except for any grants.
Wow.
It's all earned income.
Holy crap.
Which is really unusual for a theater company. Yeah. And there's no real fundraising. There's no, money board or any of that kind of crap. It's all just going on the road and making money and bringing it home.
Making money as an avant-garde, doing anything unusual, just seems so unlikely nowadays.
So that model became my model in terms of how I make a living. I tour and do shows, and that's sort of what I came up doing. So it's what I stuck to do, and I really like it. Also the political end of it was really interesting to me. Mm-hmm. That Peter, in the shows that he's done, and I wanted to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. I was really inspired by Buckley and also Alexander Calder, his circus, which is at the Whitney Museum, and which their recordings again might be on YouTube. But he has a circus animals and circus performers made out of wire and junk, and they're automata, so they do tricks, Awesome. And Calder's the Mobile guy.
Okay, right.
And that was a huge inspiration because he does the little show and his wife plays the record, and he would do the gags and the gimmicks, and it was just so great.
That's amazing.
How did you discover Buckley and Calder?
Well, Calder I knew about, as a kid. I went to high school briefly at a school where there was one of his mobiles hanging in the dining room.
Cool.
And I was a big art fan when I was a kid, so I knew his work from going to the museum. Buckley, a friend of mine I went to hippie college in Vermont, like a total hippie. I mean, forget about it. You wouldn't even believe me if I told you stories about it, so I'll spare you. But there's a buddy of mine there who is actually one of the best impressionists of Buckley and does a Buckley show. Awesome. Tom Cologna, and he turned me on to Buckley back then, and we eventually had a comedy group together and did a bunch of crap together. I don't remember what your question was. What was your?
You talking
wanted to know about
Buckley's inspiration,
right?
Oh yeah, that and generally what kind of got you interested in political satire? What specifically gears you? Like what your political satire ends up geared toward?
Well, the thing about Bread and Puppet was really cool is it's like I said, it's a very strong sort of German expressionist aesthetic to it, and which I love German expressionism and that whole time period, the Weimar period, really interesting shit that went down, and great puppets, you know, the Dadaists, what's Sophie Taubner, and Paul Klee made beautiful puppets. Okay. But anyway, I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about.
Beautiful puppets.
Yeah. What did you ask me?
I just sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
I ask really convoluted questions sometimes. I
go on such tangents.
It's okay. What kind of political? I mean, how do you say it?
What interests you?
As far as political satire, like in what's it geared toward? Is there a specific thing? Is it like some people are geared towards sexual identity. Some people are geared toward inequality,
social contract, government.
Right?
Yeah,
Well, I've done shows about being gay. I do a Punch and Judy show called Punch and Jimmy, where Punch is married to this hot young guy, and and they adopted a baby, and Punch kills a baby by mistake, and it's all the same. It's the same as Punch and Judy,
right.
But it's instead of the constable or whatever from London, it's an LAPD guy from the Ramparts division, and he beats Punch and he shoots him and all that. And then the hangman, and Punch kills everybody in the show. He kills the cop, and then the hangman comes to hang him for the death of the baby and the cop, and he kills the hangman with his own noose, and he kills death, and he kills the devil, and that's the end. So it's a gay version of that.
That's awesome.
And then I had a show, because one of the things I'm interested in doing is trying to master every form of puppetry that there is, which is an idiotic and self-aggrandizing goal, but I don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
And so I did an adaptation of an Arabic and Turkish and Greek puppet tradition called Karagoz.
Okay.
And that was also a gay theme show where Karagoz was this gay artist who lived in Syria, oddly enough, with his boyfriend, and then his enemies became the Secret Service in Syria, and then the Israelis, and then Al-Qaeda, and then Homeland Security, and the Minutemen, and he was sort of chased around the world, and it was called The Mother of All Enemies.
Okay.
And it was a defense, sort of a spirited defense of secular humanism, actually.
That's awesome.
And then I'm known for doing found objects, like just junk and packaging material, toys, whatever kind of objects, and then animating them as characters in little hyperactive puppet plays.
That's cool.
And that's it was really influenced by the pop art movement, which was a big deal when I was a kid, and I was really into it. Klaus Oldenburg particularly. And of course it's all Duchamp, it all goes back to his shtick. But and then I do toy theater, overhead projection, shadow theater, Contastoria with drawn pictures and photographs and stuff like that. I do government document exposés, or I have done them, and also industrial brochures, like about food processing. I had a whole show.
Holy shit.
So there's a lot of different media I'm interested in, and
you break down a found, like, on the one hand you're talking about animating a found object, and then you're talking about a different type. You're talking about breaking down you take an industrial brochure, some kind of found piece like that, and you break a whole show out of that.
Yeah. Like I had a show about various military publications.
Okay.
So there was the U.S. It was the military and dictionary. I don't remember the title.
Okay.
It was a military dictionary. It was used by the Pentagon, and one of the definitions in it was for a nominal weapon. and they defined a nominal weapon as a nuclear weapon with a yield of approximately 50 kilotons.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting about that as satire is that you must have had linguists working on a dictionary.
Right.
Linguists who didn't get the irony of calling a nuclear weapon nominal,
Right.
nominal meaning insignificant.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Christ.
so is that, and a whole lot of other stuff about weapons and procurement and accidents involving nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Had a show about indoor pollution, 3 Mile Island, population growth. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I've made.
You really covered a full gamut. Like there's a lot that you wanted to do that you'd like to explore.
And I've been doing it a long time.
Yeah.
Right.
Seemed like every time I found myself in a bind, I always, nothing mystic came to help me. Some man or some woman stepped up there and said, we'll help you, we'll do this, we'll do that. That's the way it looks to me. So recently on the San Bernardino freeway, I got hung up in an old junker car going to Las Vegas, Nevada. Right in the middle of the freeway during the rush hour, it conked out. Cars, got a weak clutch, but you don't let him, don't step out. Oh, it was a madhouse, like having lunch in the middle of the Indianapolis freeway. About 3 days went by, and finally along came God. There was two of them. There was a big God and a little God. They didn't know me from but they pushed and they pulled and they tugged and they twisted and they yanked and they gave me every possible assistance in the world. Finally got me on my way. Haven't seen them since. But I think that people, I hope I haven't offended your religious beliefs, but I think that people should worship people.
Is it more fulfilling to do it that way rather than stick maybe to one theme, which it seems a lot of satirists like to do?
I get tired of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I don't want to be doing gay puppet shows the rest of my life.
Right.
You know, I feel like I've sort of beaten that one to death, so
Okay.
I'll move on to whatever the next thing is.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in trying to develop means of storytelling, particularly with pictures, like to do PowerPoint/keynote presentations.
Really?
You know, which is a very kind of standard thing. It was done on television all the time.
Sure,
you know, with a commentator and then a screen behind them showing imagery. It's an old, you know, and it's one of the oldest performance techniques, performing with pictures.
Sure.
But you like to mess with it in the form of Keynote or like on a MacBook today, and you able to do sort of what you do in that format?
It's just a slideshow, you know.
Okay.
That's all there is to it. I mean, you can do all kinds of fancy stuff with those programs, but really it's just a slideshow.
Yeah.
And I would keep doing slides because I you know, that's how I started with these things, was I did slides. But I also did paper videotape, which is a scroll of paper with illustrations on it, and you unscroll it and the pictures go by that are drawn on the paper. So it's like super low-tech, you know, paper videotape or whatever.
That's awesome.
And then flip over stories, like where you draw, you paint images and you flip them over, and you know, it's thousands of years old, this technique, and it was the precursor to film and television, because that's storytelling with pictures. And it's called cantastoria in Italian, itoki in Japanese, bankelzang in German. And
there was a wonderful thing at Getty about a year ago where you've got all of the way that the monks would illustrate the scripture. And then they would show it as sequential pictures as storytelling art,
That's kind of
and then breaks it down to, in the modern day, it's a graphic novel, but even further back, it's Egyptian hieroglyphics, and I love that. I think what you're talking about, drawing the theme through all of those, expressing the same kind of thing.
the book that's written about cantastoria is called Film Before Film, and it's, you know, I think when you're, it was a cantastoria was a tradition that was revived by Bread and Puppet, where he would do flip over stories with giant woodcuts on cloth. And there's been a resurgence of it, and a lot of us in Bread and Puppet do cantastoria. But it's a really interesting place to come from when you make a film. It's when you've done cantastoria and then you make film.
Right.
You're thinking about storytelling with pictures, and I don't know anything about making films. but I've made a couple of them. Yeah, that must really say something for the work. But anyway, yeah.
I find that interesting, the difference between, say, you approach making a video or a film script-wise. I think maybe, there's a story, or I think there's some interesting scene I want to do, or some interesting character work. And I feel like I don't hear that discussion a lot with maybe people I know in that kind of media creation, breaking it down simply in terms of storytelling with pictures. I find that really interesting.
Oh, it's missing. I mean, that's the one thing maybe that film school gave me at all was an appreciation for that.
Yeah.
And everybody I know in film school, not everybody, I mean, you sort of ditch it for wanting to write screenplays. Unfortunately, you're thinking in words first rather than trying to, maybe draw something out,
I am more inclined in the visual direction.
Yeah.
And when I was one of the writers on the Dante's Inferno film that we made, of Sandow Burke's artwork, we did a toy theater version, or a live graphic novel version of Dante's Inferno using Sandow Burke, the Long Beach-based painter. And it was interesting. I'm not that interested in filmmaking, but it was fun to do the project. And, when you go into an edit session, you've never been in one before.
Yeah.
My thing was like, well, I don't know anything about editing, and how would I know? And after 5 minutes, I was going, can you pull that up a couple of
Right, exactly. You can get it down to the second.
Yeah.
Because there's something sort of, I mean, we've all been trained to a certain extent by watching TV and film.
Of course.
To know where the cut should go.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then you're naturally putting your own style on that, your own taste. So you were involved with the writing of it, and then now I'm interested. How much did you sit in the editing room?
Not much on that film.
Oh, okay.
I have on other projects, but I don't think I did on that film. I mean, the way the film. The script is like 190 pages long, and we shot it was only 60 minutes long.
Okay.
But it was because the description of scenes, what the visuals needed to look like in the frame, had to be very, very detailed.
Yes.
Because Sandow was drawing those pictures to fit the thing, and I realized I really needed to describe everything in the frame in order for it to work.
That's incredible. That's that's unheard of in anybody else. And I think that's perfect. That gets across exactly what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The only thing that wasn't cool was we only had an hour, so we had to write more scenes and reshoot. But it was really fun. It was a fun project, and it got me into toy theater, and it's what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I'm doing a show called White Like Me, a hunky-dory puppet show. And it's 2 parts. There's a ventriloquist section. We're having an old-school vent dummy. And then a toy theater, projected video toy theater called The Adventures of White Man. And it's about the trials and tribulations of being a Caucasian male in the planet Earth.
Oh, shit.
So that's what I'm playing. I'm going to play in L.A., actually, in February, late February.
Really?
At Bootleg.
Awesome.
Where is that?
Oh, my God.
It's on Beverly near Alvarado.
Oh, cool. Okay.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Did you, it's funny because when I talk to people, usually I think the expectation is people talk about, well, I started in theater, like just as an actor in theater, I started as a stand-up. I've never spoken to anybody who started as a puppeteer, as an artist, as somebody who works with their hands, but who also went on to do something that's pretty iconic from a period, and to obviously be such a good physical actor and comic actor. What about puppeteering? I know we're totally veering off of Buckley, but what about puppeteering and stuff informed you as an actor then physically without anything in your hands?
Well, I think it's not that big a deal to put the puppet down, and whatever you're doing with the puppet, just do it yourself.
Yeah.
With puppets, you're imitating life in some way.
Sure.
And so when you're doing it, I don't know, you're living life. It just doesn't seem that complicated to me. On Beakman's World, the thing that I was lucky to have was, once the writers realized I could do a few different characters, they wrote a lot of different characters in the show.
Yeah.
And they were dead guys from science or something. It was cool.
Yeah.
And so I would do that shtick.
Right.
And that was really, Italian accent, French accent, whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
so that, you know, I mean, they didn't really get an actor out of it. They got more of a performance artist kind of guy, or the way a lot of contemporary comedians are, who are very versatile and can do all this different stuff. I'm blowing my own horn. I should watch what I'm saying.
We asked.
Yep, we absolutely asked. Did you? I guess we'll get back to vinyl for a second. Did you make any friends over comedy or ever like listening to records or anything? Because I find it's becoming more and more rare to some of the people I speak to, and I'm just curious. For me, it was a big thing, and that's why I always ask. Like, I made a lot of friends over just listening to records and tapes.
Yeah, I think the Buckley albums, we would sit around and get stoned and listen to those, and also the Woody Allen. The album Stand Up Comic was a big one with my friends. When I was a kid, we listened to the Button Up Mind of Bob Newhart, and it was around the time when Khrushchev came to the States. You know, he did one shtick about that. And you know, I remember seeing Khrushchev on the Long Island Expressway going by. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was. So anyway, my dad had that album. We listened to that shit, and you know, then Richard Pryor came along, and that shit blew my mind. It was really great.
I bet.
And Robin Williams.
I really do. I like to put a little sound down on Boothby. Lord Boothby is an eminent British philosopher and humorist. He came up with a great strong line. He said that humor is the only solvent of terror and tension. Another great humorist came along, Thurber, and he said that we in America must realize that humor is one of our strongest allies. And I say, is it the duty of the humor of any given nation in time of high crisis to attack the catastrophe that faces it in such a manner as to cause the people to laugh at it in such a way that they do not die before they get killed?
Do you, yeah, I guess since you're not, you know, you don't do stand-up, I guess it's not maybe as necessary for you to be as up on the world of stand-up or anything, but is there like a particular comic or comedian or satirist now that really hits you that you absolutely love?
I'm not that. I don't really know what's going on in the comedy world so much. Yeah. I mean, I'm probably too much of a chicken shit to actually play a comedy club because
they're tough.
In a comedy club, the audience is in charge, and in a theater, I'm in charge.
Sure. Yeah.
So if somebody heckles me and it's bringing me down, I just kick them out, and you can't really do that in a comedy club.
Right.
And plus, the comedy club is really so much about laughs, which is fine.
Sure.
But like listening to Buckley, he's he does.
We're talking
stuff,
ideas.
But
you're talking so many. The laughs are so vivid when they come, but we're exploring everything in order to get there.
There's a lot of listening needed.
There's a lot of comics who do really great and serious material in that context, and I really admire them for doing that.
Yeah.
But it sounds to me like what interests you is in the theater you have control over so much more the experience.
Well, the tech is better. The sight lines are better. You know, I can't. I'm a guy with stuff. I have like 200 pounds of shit for every show I drag around and have to set up.
Yeah.
Comedy clubs don't have backstages. They're not well suited for puppet shows. There's nowhere to set up. You know, it's not practical. And I don't know. The theater is great. It can be really great. Sure. Cabaret setting can be fun too.
I'm very curious now. It sounds like you come up with a puppet show. You might tour it for a year, 2 years, something like that.
Yeah,
and then feel be inspired to move on to another idea. Do you revive older ones you've done often or ever? And are there, I guess, recordings of any of these?
There's some recordings on YouTube. I revived one show once, and the Punch and Jimmy show is the only show I have in repertory.
Okay.
So that one I can drag out any old time and update it and have some current jokes or whatever.
Yeah.
a lot of the shows are just technically too difficult to keep in rep. And plus, I'm just not interested.
Sure.
It's just not that interesting to me to do it. I mean, the Punch and Jimmy thing is, but I actually want to make new hand puppet shows. I've been going to Brazil a lot to perform, and there's a tradition there of hand puppets that's really inspired me. So I want to see if I can kick out another hand puppet show.
That's so cool. It's so hard for me to come up with a succinct set of questions because what you do is so eclectic. But as far as Buckley's concerned, if you were to do something without puppets, do you expect that you would do something even remotely similar to something he might? That's what I picture, is that you standing up and doing a character and being a human puppet, and that's. Do you have any idea what you would do if it was without puppet? What kind of performance art you'd like?
Well,
to do?
I think first of all, I've ripped Lord Buckley off. In ways that, like, one of the writers of Beakman's World came and saw me in a show called 2222, which was about the future. And he said, "You're channeling Lord Buckley." And he didn't say I'm not copying him, but I have one persona, like host kind of persona, where I just play as if I'm Buckley.
Okay.
Especially the lords and ladies, the English bullshit. And there's a piece called The Train, where he does a lot of sound effects and different voices.
Okay.
And the ending to that, there's a phrase at the ending which I put in my show. So there are tributes and shit to Buckley, and people who know Buckley will see, the influence.
Sure.
And I like your use of the word channeling and like little bits of tribute or homage, because it doesn't sound like you said ripping off. It doesn't sound like ripping off. It sounds like just sort of what we were talking about earlier about when a musician covers a song,
right,
or just doing a new iteration. What I see is passing it along, as experiencing the work and passing it along, because the way I came to be introduced to Buckley, we're talking to you about your performance art. We're talking about Buckley as what people can classify as a comedian or a monologist, but I came to him as influence on musicians like Dylan or Tom Waits, and how if we can find like some kind of characteristic or some kind of spirit that I think is embodied in all of it. So I find that interesting, how it transcends that.
I think the thing about him is he's so anarchistic and so free and so out there. He would give you the shirt off his back. He would give you money. You needed money. He would also take money and not pay people back. He was a real free spirit. He was a real flower child. Yeah. And if you listen to the, H-Bomb and the philosophy in that, it's very like pre-hippie. Yeah, and those were in the beat days. But he wasn't playing the beat, What's interesting about him is the extent that he had crossover. Like the City Light bookstore, run by Lawrence Ferlinghetti, the great beat poet and bookstore owner, they published a series of his routines in book form. Really? And that was like beat culture. Yeah. And it was in the part of town in San Francisco that was the beat part of town. I don't remember what it's called, North Beach or South or something like that. So he did have crossover into that scene, but he really came from a very commercial place.
Right.
So it's sort of interesting.
It is odd to me because I guess my picture of the beat era, I mean, I knew it was trained by one beat author. He's a very nice guy, but he, like a lot of them, had this bubbling cynicism underneath that always seemed to tint most of the beat culture to me. I mean, obviously it's a lot about being bohemian, being an artist, loving, like you said, very pre-hippie, but there's still a bubbling cynicism, and I just don't hear that in anything that Buckley does. Right. What the hell do you think that is?
Yeah, I have no idea.
It's hard, I think, to be a satirist or to be a comedian or to do anything humorous and not have that little layer of cynicism underneath.
Right.
So that's what's odd to me. I guess it's not totally odd that he would be embraced by the hipster scene of the time, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that.
Yeah. Yeah, he was more inclined because of his background to play in clubs. Not that, I mean, I think there were less sort of distinctions then too.
Sure.
He played theaters. He played the Ivar, in Hollywood. Yeah.
That's cool. Do you have what are some of your other favorite tracks, since we've kind of stuck mostly with H-Bomb and what's on here?
Well, The Train and Governor Slingwell Slugwell.
How does that
Thank you, my friends. whoa, bam, 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 ribbity, bibbity, bibbity, boom, boom. All of that stuff on top of you, and
That just sounds fun. That's just
yeah. He creates like a landscape, a soundscape.
Yeah.
And Governor Slugwell is one of my favorite routines. I like the ones where he plays a lot of different characters and uses the sound effects.
Yeah.
He had this way of blowing, like making a horn sound effect.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about next.
I have no idea how he does it, and I've tried to do it. Mm-hmm. And I've always wondered if that guy Fred, I'm blanking on his name, the guy who does the sound effects on Garrison Keillor's show.
Oh, yeah.
Fred Newman, who made a book called Mouth Sounds.
Really?
I worked with him on a pilot many years ago on PBS, but he's a really gifted guy, and he does the sound effects on Garrison Keillor, whatever that show.
Prairie Home.
Yeah. And he would know how to do it.
Yeah.
It was a combination of singing and sort of mouth farting.
Yeah. It's very delicate sounding, because at first is he doing a mouth fart? But nope, it's a little more musical than that.
Yeah.
But my fiance and I were listening to it, and the whole time she would be brought out of it for a split second, because she couldn't not hear that, because but it punctuates really beautifully, and it keeps you interested.
The problem with Buckley in today is that the language is very archaic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it gets so deep into hipster lingo that you almost need a translation.
That was the first thing I found when I was trying to look it up, was translation offers.
The one, I think you said you had trouble with the Ballad of Dan McGrew yourself, and that it's long. It's 10 minutes of holy fuck, what is he saying?
You can feel like the first time you're trying it out. It's like some of like your favorite movies. I had to watch them a few times before I fully understood.
Sure.
Is I can feel a lot of the energy, and I can
maybe
I
with
can
some
imagine.
immersion.
But there's a lot of things where I feel like I trail off in what he's saying.
So I figure I'm going to take $1 billion next month. I'm going to start a big swinging program over the television, over the radio, in the newspapers, get all the funny papers, all the people have anything to do with humor. And I'm going to start out a big, elongated 8-month campaign against the gas of all time, the bomb. The great spear of humor against the bomb. A ribbity-tip, zip-zip, and a ring-ding-ding against the bomb. All kinds, all ways, all slides, all sides against the bomb. A great, big, elongated program through the air by billboards, by little ones, by big ones, till eventually, you mentioned H-bomb or something. H-bomb. I heard a story about an H-bomb the other day. There was a couple of H-bombs. Missiles, they said. Whistle your thistle, here comes the missile.
And also just the dynamics of it, and the recordings on this album are interesting because there's clearly like maybe 30 people in the audience,
right?
And there's 3 or 4 of them, these guys who laugh a lot, really loud, and I don't know. I mean, I just can't imagine what it must have been like to see the guy live.
No, I don't know. There's like a couple. There's one guy you can hear. I think in every recording,
he's got the same laugh.
He's got the same laugh, and then there's a guy who just keeps saying, "Yeah, that's it," or something like. He keeps like confirming like out loud. He's like, yeah, that's it."
You can just feel like I'm like, what clubs or venues are like that today? I can't. I don't know what they are.
I'm pretty sure I heard a Jesus Christ in there too. Somebody who's just so blown away.
A guy said at one of the end of the routines, I think it was the Marquis de Sade one, you can just hear his voice at the end. He goes, "That's beautiful." That's really cool.
Oh, that's good.
One of the things that fascinates me about it, of the performance art style of telling these epic stories and doing his interpretation of them, and really the color and the flavor has a lot to do with the words he used and his style and his soundscapes, as being a very performance-based medium, and that is exactly what you do. And so something I'm curious about is how you in particular approach the writing process to that, because there's one thing being in a room by yourself and thinking, I have an idea I want to express, and then there's being able to communicate that physically and verbally. And I was wondering what your process is like in writing your shows.
It really depends on what medium I'm working in. If I'm doing a puppet show, I usually try to figure out what the hell I want it to be about and some theme, because I can't build the puppets until I know who's in the show. Sure. So generally I come up with an idea for a story or whatever, and then figure out what cast I need to make, and then make the puppets, and then I mean, I know it sounds idiotic, but the characters sort of write themselves.
Sure.
If if you talk to actors or improv people, they'll tell you, if you really inhabit a character, it will write its own material.
Right.
That there's some autonomous part of your brain. Mm-hmm. So in rehearsal, a lot of times the puppets write their own lines. I just get in the character and they go back and forth and ad-lib a lot.
Right.
And that's how the script gets written. But you can also do that just in your head. You can sit around, which is what I think screenwriters do. They just hear conversations in their head and they write them down.
It's so much more fun to do it actively, I feel like. Because when I write anyway, I will literally. I was recording myself on a phone yesterday, coming up with sketches, but I had to do both character voices. I write much easier that way.
Exactly. Like I can think of an idea, but actually expressing it is so much easier. Say like I'm doing improv on stage or something. Sure. It's that bouncing off of thing, that actual getting it out of your head, that I feel makes it crystallize a lot better.
I feel like having a puppet would be a much better visual guide, though.
Well, the thing that's interesting about improv is improv shows that you see, and improv as a practice is largely a group practice.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And it's about two or more people, listening and playing and, really listening and trying to float something. And that solo improv isn't like that.
Right.
Because everything is coming from my own feated brain. So, you know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
It's like,
I do.
I mean, I guess I have to listen to myself, and there's a lot of fake ad lib, the performers do, and I'll do it. Like I'll do an ad lib in a show, and I'll think, oh, that's a good set piece, and I'll put it in the show. And sometimes it'll just be like text in the show, but sometimes I'll play it so it's a fake ad lib. It seems like I just made it up on the spot.
Right. Yeah.
And that doesn't always work.
It's an art in itself.
Yeah. And after time, sometimes it'll just suck or whatever. But if you see Robin Williams, and he goes in the audience and a guy's wearing a cowboy hat and somebody else is wearing a beret or whatever, and he takes the hats and he puts them on his head and he does shtick with them. He does ad lib a lot, but he also has a trunk at home with hats in it. So, he'll whip them out and, write shtick with those things.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's interesting about being a comedian is that your mind can get on the tip of constantly thinking of things as funny, and you kind of get a muscle going,
right,
where your brain is constantly looking for something funny.
Yeah.
You hear people talking, you see a situation, and constantly you're looking for the gag or the joke in it.
Right.
And the cool thing about getting older is that it really has become like a skill.
Yeah.
Like, it just happens sort of automaticamente in my head. And I love that. I think that's really great.
Yeah, that's something I kind of, it's been a muscle to train. I've never actually asked anybody on this on the podcast, so I would like, it's kind of a typical question, but I would be curious to think what you think. I've heard people, like some of my heroes, like Mel Brooks, say that you're born funny. So you're born with the capacity for humor. Do you think it's something that you can be trained into you, that you can learn? I always wonder what people think about that.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know?
I have no idea.
No. I mean, there's no way we can know, but a lot of people have, people have their own perceptions that, you have to be born with it. Because, as a kid, I know I taught myself. Like you say, it's a muscle,
Right.
So I feel like I wanted to be funny as a kid, and I taught myself. I studied humor in a very dull, dry way. And I think I'm okay.
I think you're fine.
All right, thank you. I'm fine.
I think it's interesting because you certainly can gain something from studying it in that dry way. You certainly want to. Like when you find the first stuff you love, you want to immerse yourself in it, and you. I don't know. I was just reciting Monty Python sketches to myself, doing all and eventually that translates into being in front of a group of people and being present and. I what you said about a muscle memory, I feel like I get better at it the more I go.
Yeah, I saw Victor Borger when I was a kid, and I think I was like 10 or something. My grandmother was really into him. And he was a Danish or Swedish guy who did kind of like it was sort of intellectual shtick. I mean, I mean, I sort of would make the analogy with Spalding Gray.
Uh-huh.
You know, Spalding Gray played performance venues when he started out, but then graduated to theaters. And what's his name? The Scandinavian guy, Victor Borge. When I saw him, you know, I was just a little kid, but I was really taken by the gimmickry and, you know, the shtick that the guy did, and I copied it and all the rest of it. So he was, and you know, it's like Spalding. I mean, Spalding shit was really funny, but he was never, you know, really a comedian. He was really a storyteller.
Yeah.
That was his shtick, and his shtick was all about telling stories about himself.
Do you, since we should, I don't want to take any more of your time. What I usually ask people before we ask them to plug their stuff and all that good stuff is, why would you, maybe not this album in particular, let's stick with Buckley, but if somebody who hasn't heard of Buckley, doesn't know anything about him, is new to comedy, what would you say to them to get them to listen to it? Why is he important to listen to, as far as you're concerned?
The only people who I suggested to is puppeteers.
Yeah.
You know, I tell them, look, you want to learn how to get dynamics and do voice separation and all that stuff, Buckley's the go-to guy. I don't know anybody else who does that.
Right.
Who does those dynamics. And I just wanted to have puppets that would do that. So that's the inspiration. That's, you know, those are the people I go to. Say, puppeteers, listen to this. And most of the time, they're like, the fuck is this? They don't, you know, a lot of people just don't relate to it.
Sure.
But anybody interested in comedy or satire, any of that stuff, yeah, you want to turn on to it. I was very lucky that I got to listen to the guy and, you know, loved his shit and copied it and, you know, so, yeah, I love the Lord. What the hell?
Yeah.
And you hear songs like way down deep in the Ural Mountains, far behind the Iron Curtain, Ivan and the lads are flirting with uranium. Uranium is not geranium. I'm hip, that you know. But will you lose your aplomb when the atomic bomb comes your way? Bubbles, do you think you'll be gassed when you hear that big blast on the highway? Pom, 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 and everything goes up. And then comes down, and 52nd Street just can't be found. And Symphony Mother said, is history. Now the next scene is the Kremlin.
It's so, and I think honestly, I think it's a good. It's something good to listen to for actors in general. That kind of quick shift is such an incredible skill. Again, it's a muscle thing that I think it's good for actors, good for improvisers,
storytellers,
and storytellers for sure. Of course, yeah. I mean, and writers to be able to.
He's doing all of it. We just said all of it. He's doing all of it.
Yeah, to take that template of something that you've heard before a million times, keep it familiar but completely change the words around is a ridiculous writing skill too. I don't know how he put his material together, but it's ridiculous, and I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, his process was. I don't know a lot about it. I mean, I've read the book about him, Dig Infinity, which is a great book. If you can find it out there, it has a CD in the back, and it's all about Buckley, and I'm interviewed in it, and Tom Kalanya, and Robin Williams, and a lot of comedians.
Dig Infinity.
Carlin. Yeah, it's called Dig Infinity, and it's by the name Oliver Traeger is the guy who wrote it, and he's one of the hardcore Buckley freaks. But it has all these great stories in there, and plus a CD of his work, so you can,
That's awesome.
But I would look on Alibris for one of those.
Okay, I would definitely make sure and put a link to that. Let's plug some stuff. Like, where can people find you? Are you on Twitter? Any of that good crap?
Yeah, I have. I'm not a big.
You don't have to be.
I'm not really good at writing haikus, and that seems like what it's all about.
It's so true.
And some people are really apt at it.
Yeah.
Really, really good. That guy, the late night talk show host, the tall
Ferguson?
one. No, the tall
Conan?
guy, Conan O'Brien. His tweets are really good.
Yeah.
They
They're
are.
really good.
Steve Martin is incredible at it.
Yeah,
I'm very surprised, but yeah, he's quite good. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that he's good, but he's,
No, but
he's
it's
good at that.
funny because it's pretty new and you didn't expect it.
And yeah,
yeah. I mean, as far as plugging anything, it would
Yes.
be great if people who live in LA want to show up to White Like Me, which will be at the Bootleg Theater, the last 3 weeks of February.
is
Yeah.
it bootlegtheater.com? Do you know what the website is?
I have
Off the
no
top of your
idea.
head? I'll look it up. That's
My
fine.
website is paulzaloom.com,
Yes.
and maybe someday I'll have some information about that show at the Bootleg. I'm gonna try to do it this weekend. So.
That'd be good. And I will just ask because obviously I'm interested. Have you? I mean, I went to the Beakman Live website.
So-
When was the last time did you do a Beakman Live? And are you still doing them?
Yeah, I do. I do a show right now, which I'm touring in the States and in Canada, called Beakman on the Brain.
Okay.
And it's a live science show about neuroscience where I use toy theater and my drawings
Holy
and
crap.
live video
Yeah.
and contest, all of this
Yeah.
stuff.
That's so cool.
And so that's what I'm touring in the States. When I go to Brazil, where Beakman is a huge star in Brazil, like hugely popular
Holy
there.
shit.
Of course.
It showed in prime time, like 5 days a week.
Really?
And yeah, the fans are fanatical.
Well done.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I've been there a few times, and I want to tour an earlier show, kind of a generic science show called Beakman Live, and that's what I want to take to Brazil.
I saw a Beakman in person you did in Boston in 07, I believe.
Huh?
Yeah, earlier 07, and it was really fun.
That would have killed me, man.
I'm just curious, were you fascinated by science as a kid?
Natural science, yeah, like what was going on in the woods and how that all worked has always been really interesting to me. I spent a lot of time in Vermont as a kid and as an adult, and running around in the woods and doing stuff. And so things about the natural world, about trees, where they grow, how they grow,
Yeah.
the life cycle in the woods, and animals like the beavers and their symbiotic relationship with birds and with plants, and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff really interested me. But I'm not a scientist, and I wasn't trained as a scientist, and I could sell the material, which was really important, because I understood it and I got it. My passions are humor and performing, and I love doing the show about neuroscience because it's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm curious, so what the hell?
It's-
Do a show about the brain.
It's that kind of thing. I do think that people should make sure that they value putting humor and education together. It's a time-tested technique to put those two together in that show, because I won't say I hated science as a kid. I was a fairly good student, but it was shows like Beakman
love the show.
that made me interested, kept me interested. So people should not. Oh boy, frog in my throat. People should just make sure that they value that, because it's a thing that's in the kind of, I don't know, dwindling a little bit.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah.
I did a short film about dinosaurs a few years ago that I'm pretty damn sure I wouldn't have done if I didn't know Beakman too, because it's a little more smart alecky, if that's possible, but just no puppets. But yeah, I feel like if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have been able to do that so well.
The show had a very sort of homemade aesthetic, and the director, a guy named Jay Dubin, thinks very visually. The writers are very word oriented.
Yeah.
So having those two marry each other was challenging, but interesting. You never have any time or any money in Hollywood. It's the same old sob story. So instead of doing like blue screen and have a dinosaur or some shit, we would just use toys, and drag them across the stage with a piece of baling twine or whatever.
Right.
Or like you'd need a duck to fly through the frame, and instead of having a computer generated duck, you just hot glue a dowel to a rubber duck, and you have it fly through the frame. You see the stick and all the rest of it.
It feels way more sincere.
It does.
Point across.
Yeah, it's just low tech, and people are suckered by that shtick because they've seen the 3D movies, they've seen all this stuff, and then to see a stick hot hot glued to a rubber chicken is, all of a sudden looks innovative, even though it's like 1,000 years old.
Right.
That's why people really like this low-tech sort of shitty puppetry form, because it's not real glossy and fancy, and it is sort of homemade and idiotic.
And beautiful.
That is a classic way to end it. I think, to call something that you do and love idiotic. That's what we all do.
Right on.
So thank you so much for doing this. Everybody, make sure that you don't follow him on Twitter, because you're not on Twitter. But you go to your website. Please go see his show in L.A. Everybody, thanks for listening, and have a good thing.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Alex.
And thank you, Jason. And thank you, Paul.
This is awesome.
Khrushchev has just returned from a very big visit, shaking everyone up, rattling the rockets and one thing and another. And they give him a big party in the Kremlin, and what with Russian benzodrine and vodka and one thing and another, he's smashed out. He's in the silk, sacked out with a concrete wig. He's in bad shape. And Molly comes in. He says, Krusky. He says, not now, Molly. Some other time, please. Not now. I'm a very sick man. I cannot talk now. He said, but Molly, something terrible is happening. What terrible? What could happen? What terrible? He said, but the Americans. Said, the Americans what? He said, the Americans are in the street, laughing at the bombs. What? This is terrible news. If we cannot scare them to death, we cannot beat them. Give me a double shot of vodka right away. We get back Poland, see what happens. Yeah.
Comedy on Vinyl is a production of Stolen Dress Entertainment. It is produced by Mike Worden and is hosted and edited by Jason Klom. Visit stolendress.com to listen to our other podcasts, to read our blogs, read our tweets, watch our videos, and read our books. Please subscribe on iTunes, rate us highly, and write your reviews. You can follow us on Facebook.com/ComedyOnVinyl and Twitter @ComedyOnVinyl.
Hipsters, flipsters, and finger-popping daddies, knock me your lobes. I came to lay Caesar out, not to hip you to him. The bad jazz that a cat blows wails long after he's cut out. The groovy is often stashed with their frames. So don't put Caesar down. The swinging Brutus hath laid a story on you that Caesar was hungry for power. If it were so, it was a sad drag, and sadly hath the Caesar cat answered it. Here, with a pass from Brutus and the other brass, for Brutus is a worthy stud, yea, so are they all worthy studs, though their stallions never sleep. I came to wail at Caesar's wake. He was my buddy, and he leveled with me. Yet Brutus deems that he has eyes for power, and Brutus is a solid cat. It is true he hath returned with many freaks in chains, brought them home to Rome. Yea, the looty was booty, and hipped the treasury well. Dost thou dig that this was Caesar's groove for the push? When the cats with the empty kicks hath copped out, yea, Caesar hath copped out too, and cried up a storm. To be a world grabber, a stiffer riff must be blown.